Good morning, students. Good morning to all. And last day we have studied about the functions of commercial banks and the functions of commercial banks, the primary functions of commercial banks and the secondary functions of commercial banks. So today also just we will remind what we have studied on last day and just go to the next concept. So yesterday we have studied the primary functions of commercial banks and the secondary functions of commercial banks. So in the secondary functions, the first one is agency functions. As an agency, the commercial banks are acting many things. First, the transfer of funds. So bank issues demand draft, bankers check, travelers checks, etc., and help in transfer of funds from one place to another place. Now, if any of the persons who is kept to the account from one bank and he can able to transferring the funds from another customers who has the account from another bank is easiest one. So customers need not carry the cash. So they can just forward that draft issued by the banks to receiving the institution is enough. A small commission is collected by the banks for these services. Next, periodic payment of premium, rent, etc. So normally now we can purchase many of the funds or many of the commodities from many of the business organizations. And we will be in the need of paying every month or every week for many purposes. So this periodic payment also will be paid by the bank itself on behalf of the customers. So after instruction from the customers, banks undertake the monthly payment of insurance premium, rent, telephone bill, etc. from the accounts of customers. Nowadays, these payments are made through electronic clearing system facility offered by the banks. We will study about the electronic clearing systems. Next, collection and payment of checks. Now, all the banks are collecting and on the payment on the name of checks, it will be paying. So on behalf of customers, bank collect the check deposited into the accounts of customers from other banks and deposit cash in the customers' accounts. Now, so many of the organizations are providing the checks only instead of cash. But how the customers want to become as the cash from the checks means by giving the checks to the bank only is enough, they will change as a accounts. Next, acting as the executors, trustees and attorneys. So commercial banks act as the executors of will of the customers and implement their will after their death. So now we have some amount of the properties. If any of the individual persons having some of the properties and after his death, as per their willingness, how the property is going to change and whom it will be changed is also executed by the bank itself. As a trustee, a bank takes care of the funds of the customers. So bank signs transfer deed of properties of the customer in the capacity of attorney to customers. Next, conduct share market transactions. A demat account should be opened with a depository participant and that demat account should be linked with saving bank account by the customers. So demat account means one type of the account. It will be used by the persons, those who are used in the share transactions or share market. Then the customer can ask the bank to conduct online purchase or sale of securities on behalf of him. Normally, as a single person can involve in the share market or the functions of share market. But suppose if the customers unable to involve in the share market functions on behalf of the customers, so the bank itself will be undertaking these services. Next, preparation of income tax return. So banks prepare the annual income tax return on behalf of the customers and to provide income tax related advice to them. So nowadays many of the people are unknowing to or unable to know about the tax process. So the Reserve Bank of India will provide some of the ideas related to the tax providing. Next, dealing foreign exchange. So banks buy and sell foreign currencies and on behalf of the customers. The persons who are involved in this international trade, that is the import or export process, he must need of foreign exchange, otherwise foreign money. So on behalf of the customers, so the bank will be buy and sell the foreign currencies. Next, acting as a correspondent. The banks act as a correspondent of customers and receives the traveler ticket, passports, etc. Okay students, then today we will study the general utility functions. The commercial banks, addition to the primary and the secondary functions, it will provide some of the general utility functions. It will give to the customers welfare. So the welfare function is also called as a general utility services or general utility function. So under the general utility functions, first one is issue of demand draft and bankers check. Issue of demand draft and bankers check. So all the customers will be in need of having the demand draft and the check also. So demand draft and bankers checks are issued to the public and the customers as well. So instead of sending money, they can attach this instrument for payment of educational fees, etc. Now, if you are paying the educational fees or exam fees to the government, we will not able to paying in the cash itself. So instead of cash, we must paying in the money in the form of demand draft. For that, the bank will be issues and collect the demand draft and the checks also. So next, accepting bills of exchange on behalf of customers. So banks accept the bills on behalf of the customers and make payment to the foreign exporters. So bills mean it may be one of the debentures or bills of exchange. The bills of exchange mean one of the document. It enables to exchange as a money. So afterwards, the banks collect from the customers. Next is safety lockers. So valuable documents, jewelries, etc. can be kept safely in a vault provided by bank for a rent. This vault room is called strong room. Normally, many rich people are having the valuable documents or jewelries and something etc. But nowadays, protecting these valuable documents and jewels and ornaments is not possible because the fearness of theft is very much harmful affected. So by mentioning the fairness of the customers, the bank will provide the safety lockers. According to this one of the safety vault will be provided to the customers. Some of the lockers will be provided to the customers, and the customers also can easily use the lockers themselves, and they can keep their all the documents and the valuable items. Next, letters of credit. This document is given by bank on behalf of importing customers to the exporter guaranteeing payment for the imported goods. So the letter of credit is one of the document. This document is provided by the commercial banks to the importers. On behalf of the importers, the commercial banks will provide the letters of credit to the exporters bank. By receiving this letter of credit, only the importer or the exporters bank will import the commodity to the exporters. So it is a very important document in the international trade, because the importer will never importing any of the goods from the exporters without this letter of credit. This letter of credit is provided by the commercial banks for them customers. Next, traveler check. So nowadays the traveler check also issued by the commercial banks for their customers. The customers need not carry cash during travel in India or abroad. Nowadays we are going to the tour or going to many places around throughout the world for the purpose of dealing the business also. Whenever we are going to other nations, other state, other area, we must have some of the money. But one thing we have to note, by carrying the money in the form of cash, it is not very protectable. So that only the traveler check is issued by the commercial banks for their customers. Now wherever we want to go, we can carry the traveler check and we can change as the bank branch. So the denominations and words are printed in the checks. It is accepted as money, shops, hotels, travels, agencies, etc. Next, gift check. So these denominations printed checks are available in attractive designs so that it can be presented during wedding, birthday functions, etc. Now normally we are going to providing the gift in the form of commodity for their birthday and wedding and some of the programs. So by mentioning this idea by the Reserve Commercial Bank, it will be providing the gift checks. So some of the denominations will be printed on the checks with their designs, and we can provide this check as a gift. Next, reference services. The business firms can give their banker's name as reference to the new business institutions with which they want to establish commercial relationships. Nowadays, the reference is very much important. Now, if any of the new business organizations are going to make the dealing with other organizations, the entrepreneurs or other organizations will ask the reference. So one of the bank is providing the reference that business organization or the entrepreneurs can use the bank name as their reference. So banks willingly act as a referees and to provide information about the financial standing of their customers. Now, if any of the business organizations are not interested to make the dealing with another organizations, so they will show their reference of the banks. So by seeing this reference of bank, they will get some of the confident after that, so the business dealing will be available easily. So the general utility functions also provided under the 7 categories. Next, diversified banking account functions. Diversified banking functions. So competition in the banking industry has reduced their profits. Therefore, the commercial banks started identifying and offering new and diversified financial services. They are purely other than banking services. Providing all such banking and other financial services is also called universal banking. So under this diversified banking functions, first one is it will be providing the bank assurance. So it refers to the offering of insurance policies or product by the bank in association with another insurance company. So banks should follow Insurance Regulatory and Development Authority of India. So many of the Corporation Bank, Oriental Bank and Commerce and Vidya Bank also tied up with the Life Insurance Corporation of India. So SBI has joined hands with the Punjab National Banks and some of the banks. So the bank also will have the tied up with the insurance companies, and the bank also will providing some of the assurance to their customers. So now additionally the primary functions and the secondary functions, so it will providing some of the assurance to the customers also. Next, merchant banking. So merchant banks do not provide regular banking services. A commercial bank or its subsidiary merchant bank may offer services like project counseling, underwriting, etc. required for starting any of the companies. If any of the company merchant want to start at any of the new organizations, the banking services is important. So providing any of the project counseling and how it will be conducted, wherever the profit loss will be arises, and without knowing any of the information about any of the commercial organizations, if anybody started, so the bank will giving some of the merchant facilities. Next, retail banking or personal banking. It refers to mass market banking which reaches out to large number of individual end customers. So apart from accepting deposit, their services include personal loans, vehicle loans, consumers durable loans, or etc. Next, housing finance. The housing finance is provided against the security of immovable property of land and buildings. So many banks such as SBI, Bank of India, etc. have set up a housing finance subsidiaries. If anybody want to build a new house, so the commercial banks will providing the financial services. Next, venture capital fund. So venture capital fund provides startup share capital to new ventures of little known, unregistered, risky, young and small private business, especially in technology oriented, knowledge intensive business. So if any of the small entrepreneurs or the poor entrepreneurs want to start at any of the organizations without thorough knowledge, it will be give some of the venture capital fund. Next, functions of all commercial banks totality. So aggregately or totality, how the commercial banks are providing their functions. All commercial banks put together perform certain functions to the development of the country's economy. By improving the country's economy, the all commercial banks totality providing some of the functions. First, more production and economic growth. How more production and economic growth is possible because of the functions of commercial banks mean. So the commercial banks supply the vitamin money to all sectors of economy, including manufacturing sector. As a result, all the sector produce more commodities. If any of the entrepreneurs want to increase the supply of the commodities, he will be in the need of sufficient level of the financials. Then if there is no the sufficient level of the financial facilities, means the entrepreneurs will borrow the money from the commercial banks. So the commercial banks rendering the money to the entrepreneurs, after that only he can be able to increasing the supply of commodities. By increasing the supply of commodity only, the more production will be possible. Because of that more production, economic also will be growth. Next, capital formations. So bank encourage savings habit among people and accumulate their small dormant savings. These funds can be fruitfully channelized for productive purposes of the economy. For more produce or increasing the gross domestic product, the capital formation is very much important. How the capital formations will be gathered by the commercial banks and how it will be channelized to the entrepreneurs means. So the banks encourage the savings habit among the peoples by the different ways. By introducing the different method, it will be collecting the savings and accumulate the small savings and they will give back to the entrepreneurs. Next, service coverage to non-monetized sector. So branches of the banks are opened in rural and village areas so that the non-banking areas are provided banking services. So before that or once upon a time or in the beginning stage there is no banking facilities in the rural areas and the village areas. But after that extending the banking sector, even the rural peoples also can be able to use the services rendered by the commercial banks. Next, the consortium finance. So thousands of crores required to establish a mega factory is not available from a single source. So banks join together and provide consortium finance in such cases. If any of the large scale industries required the thousands of crores, so when the entrepreneurs will be in the need of 1,000 crores, so a single commercial banks will be not able to providing this amount. So all the commercial banks will join together and they will provide the 1,000 crores project. Next, balanced regional development. So the banks transfer funds from surplus areas and make them available in scarce districts or areas for the formation and operation of business institutions. So whenever or wherever the functions and the services provided by the commercial banks are extending, it will transferring to the small areas and the areas wherever the scarce district and areas are there. So even growth of different regions can be achieved through these functions. When the accumulated money and some of the benefit also will be moving from one place to another one of the places. So because of that, the balanced regional development will be appear. Next, smoothing of trade and commerce. For the efficient functioning of all traders and business institutions in a country, safe keeping of their funds, transfer of funds, payment and collection of funds when and where needed is very much necessary. Banks perform these functions. So now for the efficient functioning and the smoothing of trade and commerce, the business institutions is very much important. So transfer of funds, payment and the collection of funds, everything have to be take place very efficiently. But as the individual persons and some of the collecting persons unable to undertake these events. So on behalf of them, so the commercial banks will doing this work. Next, development of industries, agricultural and medium small scale industries and self-help groups. So banks designs methods and instruments of financing each sector differently. So they provide finance for small farmers, medium traders as well as industries. For example, banks allow microcredit to self-help groups, overdraft to traders and issue certificate of deposit to finance industries. Those who all needed the different type of the help, the commercial bank will provide it all there soon. Next, the implementation of monetary policy. The banks have established customer relationship with all public and business institutions through their network of branches. So broad guidelines of rules of the government for the monetary sector of a country cannot be applied without such guidelines. So we have studied the monetary policies will be issued by the Reserve Bank of India only. but the Reserve Bank of India will have never keep in touch with the customers. But all the rules and regulations and the guidelines provided by the Reserve Bank of India will be reached to the customers only by the commercial banks. Next, encourage export and international trade. So commercial banks open foreign branches or establish correspondent relationship with the banks in foreign countries to help exporters. So all the commercial banks will be established the branch into the abroad also. So whenever the international traders want to need of the help in the commercial banks, they can get it. Next, new entrepreneurs and employment opportunities. So entrepreneurs obtain project loans and establish new business houses. By providing the required credit, banks generate more the economic activities and new employment opportunities. So whenever the entrepreneurs being in the need of or help of the financial facilities, so the commercial bank will be provide it all. So because of that only one entrepreneur can able to start at any of the new industries. After establish the new industries only, the employment opportunity also will be generated. But in this case, if the commercial bank is not existing, the entrepreneurs also will not able to start at any of the industries, and because of that, no one will get the employment opportunities. So under the functions of all commercial banks in totality, the 10 services are provided by that. First one is more production and economic growth only possible by the commercial bank. Next, capital formations. The capital formations also is collected by the commercial banks only. Next, consortium finance. Next, service coverage to the non-monetized sector. Non-monetized sector means so all the branches. Next, balanced regional development also will be created by the commercial bank only. Next, implementation of monetary policies will be reached to the public by the commercial banks only. Next, encourage the export and international trade. Next, new entrepreneurs and employment opportunities also will be arranged by the commercial banks only. Okay, students. So in this point, so our 12th chapter also has been completed. So if you have any doubt in this 12th chapter, please ask me. And just to take the functions of all commercial banks totality as your today's study portions. Thank you.